the companies that hire the best game designers are the kids who've actually had a real life. You can't draw and write a game about something happening in a battle in nature, for example, if you've never been in nature, if you don't know how nature works.
Welcome to the Healthy Screen Habits Podcast. I'm Hillary Wilkinson. Whether you're starting your parenting journey with a newborn or looking to connect with your teen on technology, let's learn some new healthy screen habits together. After her oldest son, Adam, dropped out of college due to his video game addiction, my guest today put her nursing degree to good use and founded Screen Strong, a nonprofit that empowers families to prevent screen problems and reclaim their kids from toxic screens. Welcome to Healthy Screen Habits, Melanie Hempe.
Thank you for having me, Hillary. I'm so happy to be here. I love talking about this topic. Thanks.
I understand when you have a platform upon which you're passionate, it seems like all conversations lead back to the same thing. So
It just always does. And I never really intended to be on this platform, but like you just mentioned in my little bio there, that this was something that hit me out of the blue. Like you said, I'm a nurse. I thought I kind of understood all things mental health related, I guess you would say, And our oldest son, we have 4 children, and our oldest son just kind of went to live on a different planet. I'll say it like that. We didn't know what was happening to him all through middle school and high school. We lost Adam. What happened? He was playing video games, right? So he got very addicted to video games right under my nose. I had no idea what was happening. He had all the warning signs, all the things were happening in our house. There was a lot of conflict. And I just thought he was going to outgrow it, Hillary. I thought he was going to go to college. And once he went to college, he's going to quit playing this silly game and he was going to start living his life. Well, the exact opposite happened, because now we know that little gamers grow up to be big gamers. So he just gamed more when he was in college, and he dropped out. And that was crazy because he was a straight A student. We never had any of those kind of signs, and I think back then, and I think today, even Hillary, I think that a lot of parents gauge their kids' health based off of their grades. And right? And that's not a good litmus test. Just that's a little side tip I'll throw out there. So I went to pick him up after that last day of his freshman year, and he looked like he was on drugs. I'm a nurse, so I did understand some of this. And I just said, Adam, are you on drugs? And he said, no. World of Warcraft did something to my brain. I have been in bed for a week. I didn't finish my classes. I haven't been to eat. He had not, I don't think he had a shower. He didn't look like he had a shower. It was awful. So long story short, my husband and I finally realized, oh my gosh, this is what's been happening all these years. And we just never put it together. So I started traveling. I started meeting a lot of the physicians that I knew through Emory and just through different places that I had been interfacing with from my professional life. And I could not believe the research, even back then in 2012, the research that was coming out on screen addictions. So the gal at school who was the counselor said, Melanie, why don't you come share some of this with some of our families? And I made 20 handouts of a little handout that I put together, and I showed up, and there were 125 people in the room. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're not the only ones struggling. So many people are struggling, but nobody was really talking about it at the time. So I started Screen Strong so we could get our momentum going. And sure enough, after almost a decade here, we have figured out how to help families that have this problem. We have figured out how to prevent and reverse video game and social media addiction, just really any screen addiction for kids. We focus only on kids. I don't focus on adults. There are plenty of other people that are helping them. So we are an educational organization. And I believe that if you really stick to the science, you get your answer pretty clearly.
I think that's one of the things that makes Screen Strong such a standout is your medical background, allows you to approach this in a very science-based manner.
Right.
And I applaud you for entering this digital wellness pond, like it or not, in 2012, because honestly, when we founded in 2018,
Yeah.
we often felt like the rest of the community was looking at us like we were the crazy ladies on the
Yeah.
soapboxes on the corner, you know? And I mean, good night. That was
Yeah.
6 years after you. But
Yeah.
it's so interesting to hear your path. It's very recognizable. And what we know now about video games triggering dopamine, just do it. We know so much more.
Well, let me tell you
So,
what happened after I went through all that with Adam with video games. That was right around the time when, everybody's getting their smartphones. And so my daughter was in middle school. I was at a ball game one day. I asked one of the other parents there who had older girls, what do you do about this social media stuff, right? Like, tell me about it. Your kids are in high school. How does this work? You know what she did? She reached in her pocket, she pulled out a card for a physician, and she said, oh, here's the doctor that we all use because when Melissa gets on social media, she's going to have to take anti-anxiety medication. So you might as
uh,
well start her on it right now. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is the same thing. It is a screen addiction, whether it's a video game, whether it's your smartphone, it doesn't matter. It's a screen addiction. It triggers all the same things. And I decided at that point that my younger three kids, what would happen to these kids if they didn't have video games and if they didn't have smartphones and social media? I wonder what would happen. I already know kind of what happened, with the first one. And so that's what we did. We decided, you know what, we're not doing it. And it was from all of that boots on the ground and that uh, really personal knowledge that I got walking through three more children coming through, a girl and then two boys, of what it's like in this day and age raising children with a low tech lifestyle and really what that means. Because as you agree, we are not screen free. That is not
mhm.
what we are. It's like saying if you're allergic to peanuts, then you never eat food again in your life. That's not what we do. If you have an allergy to something, you just eliminate that thing that you have the allergy to. And so we decided we were going to eliminate the most problematic screen use, which is video games, social media, which is the same thing as smartphones, and pornography. So I focused on those three things. Those are the three things that we work on at Screen Strong. That's where all our research is. This is where we bring all our physicians together and we find ways to help parents who are burned.
What are some key things or like red flag type behaviors
Yeah.
that you recommend families look out for? I want to focus more on the gaming aspect of things. I
Okay.
feel like social media has gotten a
A
lot of
lot of
press
attention.
lately,
Yeah.
which is so important.
But let's talk about gaming. I'm an
Yes.
expert at raising a gamer, like an addicted
Okay,
gamer. So I can
let's
tell you
go.
how to do that. So the first thing that you see that you don't realize is that gaming is becoming the only thing that he likes to do. Like he can't list two or three other things that he likes more than his game. And if that's the case, then you're in trouble right away. That's my first thing I tell people. If your child can't list two or three other healthy activities that he likes better than his video game, because video gaming is not a healthy activity, if he can't list at least two things, then you are in the danger zone. All right. This means that he is putting too much of his life into his game. The second thing is that his use is increasing over time. It used to be, oh, he'd play a little, Candy Crush, or then it got into Minecraft, and then it kind of now it's getting into Fortnite. Now he's starting to play every day. If he's starting to play more over time, what will happen is other activities start to fall off the grid, right? So it's gradual. This gaming problem doesn't happen just immediately overnight. But so you've got the meltdowns when they're forced to unplug. That's the other thing. They literally, I had a mom one time tell me she thought her 14-year-old son, she said, she called me, I think he's having a seizure on the kitchen floor because I took his Minecraft away. And they really look like they're having seizures sometimes. They act like toddlers again. And this is that primal brain kicking in, that limbic area kicking in, because their frontal cortex has totally shut down. Because after about 20 minutes, the frontal cortex shuts down when you're gaming. That limbic area lights up and you're in your fight flight mode. And when we are fighting the bear, we don't worry about our homework. Our logical center gets shut down. So that's why your 14-year-old can act like he's literally having a seizure on the kitchen floor. The next thing is they start lying, they're sneaking around, this is what this classic of any addiction. In fact, all
Mhm.
these things are very classic of any addiction. The meltdowns, the increased use over time, the only thing that puts them in a good mood, they're sneaking around, they're using screen time, for an escape. It becomes like a drug, right? So they're using it for an escape. I don't want to do my homework, so I'm gonna play video games. I don't want to deal with my parents' divorce, so I'm gonna deal with video games. It's an escape for that. And then the best thing that I could say, or not the best, I wouldn't say it's the best warning sign, but it's the most powerful warning sign, I think, is their detachment from your life, from your family life. And so we would get into situations with Adam where, Adam, it's your sister's birthday. Why don't you come up and sing happy birthday to her? Or Adam, come to dinner. Or Adam, how about coming upstairs and open Christmas presents? All these things, they would rather be on their game. You're constantly pulling away from their game in order to do real life. So that is a huge warning sign. Don't let anyone tell you this is a natural thing that teenagers do. That is a myth. It is not grounded in science. It is not true. It's not grounded in brain science. Our kids, even when they're teenagers, they need us as much as they needed us when they were little. They still become independent. They have their own friends, but they need that family foundation. They need you as their parent to be their compass. You need to be really connected. They may act like they don't like you, and that's okay. That's part of their job. But once that is severed, once they don't feel like they're part of their family anymore, that's when the biggest damage is being done. But those are some of the warning signs. I got to also say one more. When they
Sure.
start putting their fists through the wall because they're mad because their little brother came over and messed up their game, that's another warning sign. There's the violent outburst with gaming too.
Okay. So I like how you kind of led us through the escalation of that. Um, mm, when we talk to parents, some parents are telling us that, my son is convinced he's going to, become a professional gamer, or we have all these esports options at universities now. And
Mhm.
what do you recommend? I keep referring to particularly sons or our boys in response to gaming. I recognize that there are a huge number of girls on the gaming side as well, but
Mhm.
it's my experience, and I'm interested because I feel like you're certainly a bigger expert on gaming than me. Do you see there's a gender divide?
Oh, there absolutely is. There's no question. All the data supports that too. That generally boys are going to struggle more with gaming than girls. Girls still game, but they will trade their smartphone for their game most of the time. So girls are using social media differently than boys. So they become more addicted to their phone and boys become more addicted to their game. That is across the board a very true statement. It fills that need for them to feel a purpose. The problem is there's no purpose. Like Adam said, you can work on this thing for days and days. And he estimates that he probably spent 10 or 12,000 hours on his video gaming all through middle school and high school. And when you really think about what you could have done in the real world with that time, they feel very empty because they have nothing to show for their time. So for the gamers out there that think that they want to be game designers one day, this
Right.
is what
Or
I
or to
tell,
hit that professional,
or
like
hit
I'm
the
gonna call it
professional thing. Okay.
circuit.
So it's sort of like being a professional gambler. Gaming is very much like gambling. It triggers all the same things. It's the same process, sort of addiction. It's like gambling. So you have to decide as a family, is this something we value? Do we value gambling? In our family, we just don't value gambling. Some families do. With our family, with gaming, do we value this? No, we don't. We're not going to let our kids do something that we don't value. Now, let me tell you about the child who says he's going to be a game designer. The companies that hire the best game designers are the kids who've actually had a real life. You can't draw and write a game about something happening in a battle in nature, for example, if you've never been in nature, if you don't know how nature works. Gaming companies, they don't hire kids who are isolated, spending ridiculous amounts of times on games. They want very balanced kids who have played a music instrument, who've taken art lessons, who know how to be on a team, who know how to work with people. They lose their temper, they're out of there. They can't use them. So that's a big problem. As far as esports go, I'm very sad that they put the word sports with it. I
Me
have
too.
my daughter is a D1 college athlete. She worked very hard to achieve all of that skill. It was a gymnastics. She just now is out of college, but she worked her whole middle school and high school for this 4 year hours every day after school. She worked on her skill. Esports, it's like gambling. So, and that is what kids do, they gamble on all the esports. So that's not that, one in a million, if that. I think you have a higher chance actually of being in the NFL than you do of making something of yourself with your video gaming. So
Okay. So next, let's talk about habits and setting an early foundation for success with screen management. But first, we have to take a break. Did you know anyone in a U.S. state, territory, or tribe who needs suicide or mental health related crisis support, or who has a loved one in crisis, can connect with a trained counselor by calling or texting 988. 988 is the easy to remember number that reaches what is commonly referred to as the Lifeline, a network of more than 200 state and local call centers funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. Formerly known as the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the full name has changed to the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. 988. It's the 911 for mental health. I'm speaking with Melanie Hempe, a mom of 4 and the founder of Screen Strong. So, Melanie, when I was growing up, we were not allowed to watch TV. My mom said the shows had no socially redeeming value. And we only had one TV in the house, and it was in my parents' bedroom.
yeah.
And so fast forward to today, and I just, feel like laying in bed and watching TV is the height of adult luxury. But I bring that up because I'm currently working on my own horrible screen habit that I'm struggling with of falling asleep with the TV on, which is it's awful. It's awful. My husband's doing a lot of travel right now. And so it's like, I mean, I should be reading is what I should be doing. I know this, but but I feel like I'm experiencing a little bit of what I hear other people being concerned about, which is this like response to deprivation, being binging, And so when we limit gaming for our kids in the house growing up, does it stand to reason that when they leave the house or go away to college, that they're just going to go hog wild and spend all of their time online? Or what are your thoughts about that?
No, that absolutely will not happen. I have very clear thoughts on this because I would say just the opposite. The more time they spend gaming now, the more they're going to spend, even binge more when they're out of your house, because that's what they are comfortable doing. I have a podcast number 179 where one of my sons, the younger sons, gets up and answers this question with a number of other questions for a group of parents. And he said, because I asked him, I said, Andrew, you didn't grow up with video games, so are you going to binge and go crazy in college? And he thought about it and he said, well, the deal is, I stink at video games because I didn't grow up with them. And the other part of the answer, he said, is I have so much, that I love to do. And I have a love for so many different hobbies that there's no way that's just lame. Like once you open that door and they start figuring out how to read and play musical instruments and how to gather groups together, and they're very social, and my younger two grew up without video games. They have so many more friends than Adam does, and he'll freely admit this day. Friendships are tough, because when you didn't grow up making a lot of friends and having that be your social thing, because you're not being social online, by the way, with your video game friends. That's not being social. That's a whole nother discussion. It's sort of halfway. It's not genuine. It doesn't fill your tank. But when you are growing up without playing video games, when you go to college, that is the last thing you're going to do, because you're going to be on the intramural team. You're going to be hanging out with your buddies. You're going to be riding your bike. You're going to be doing all of the coffee houses. Andrew actually is still doing all his music. Both of them are still doing all their music. I was so shocked because I thought surely they're going to stop piano lessons. Guess what? They're in piano in college. I'm like, oh my gosh, they did that all on their own. And that's what you're doing as a parent when you are saying no to video games, no for now. And I used to tell them all the time, yeah, you can go game when you're in college. I don't care. Even though, yeah, I would care because Adam dropped out of college for it. But my point is, what you do now is what you do later. This is a myth. The second thing I want to say about this is when we fear the future, when we fear, okay, we can't do this now because they may do this later, that is not the right kind of parenting. We have to parent in the moment for what we know is the right thing right now. I am not going to parent them and say, I'm going to think maybe in 10 years they're going to binge and do this. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to worry about what they may do when they leave my house. I'm going to know right now what they need to be doing is learning life skills, people skills, and every minute that they're on a video game is a minute out of that bucket. Plus, the other thing, Hillary, that parents don't understand is you are grooming an addict. They're not playing Pac-Man anymore with video games. When we talk about video games, we're not talking about Pac-Man and all the games that Mario Kart that we used to play. That is not what they're playing. They are playing games today that are so highly dopaminergic that their brains are being changed. And what happens with a kid who is used to that much dopamine for 2 hours a day, even if it's just 2 hours a day, that is going to change their brain. They will become addicted. That's the way it's designed. And I don't say that flippantly. They
Right,
will
right. No, persuasive
develop a
design.
dependency. That is the whole point. And guess what? When that game isn't quite exciting enough, the next thing is pornography and the next thing is pot. And that is how it goes. That is the flow. So by the time they get to college, not only are you going to have a gamer who's binging on his game, he's got it because of tolerance. We know this about brain science and dopamine because of that tolerance factor. Now he's got to have more dopamine. So guess what he's doing now in college? Not only is he gaming, but he's watching all kind of porn all day because this is, I won't say all day, maybe an hour a day, because now that's the next natural dopamine producing thing. And they're smoking pot. Now you may not have any problems with that, but it's really common. I don't have any research on this. I will tell you in my 10 years, this is the most common thing I see. One addiction leads to another. And I will also just say, because I know there's parents out there just saying, oh my gosh, this is insane. There's no way I can take his video game. Yes, you can. First of all, you can take his game away. You are the parent. You got to quit treating your child like they're your best friend. You got to do what needs to be done. And you got to start with education. We've got to educate them.
For people who feel like now we're falling down the rabbit hole, what can we do? We have a tool on our website called What to Do When You're Feeling Meh, which sort of walks teens through pre-thinking what things they can do when they're feeling down rather than engage with the screen. So it's kind of that, what you're talking about is like building up those offline activities and things that are naturally dopamine producing rather than this hyper stimulation that occurs. And so let's kind of jump from, we've been talking families. I'd just like to take a short trip into more of a call to action of big tech companies. And what role of responsibility do you think big tech holds towards our youth?
That's a great question. I got this question early on with the gaming work I was doing, and a lot of people asked me, "Don't you just want to go shut down all these gaming companies, for example?" And the statistics on that, gaming is bigger than Hollywood. It's bigger than any industry. We have billions of dollars, like it's the hundreds of billion, like it's just an unbelievable amount. So we're not going to shut them down. And I remember back then even saying, I'm not going to spend my effort and my energy trying to shut down the gaming companies, just like I'm not going to shut down big tobacco. My kids are just not going to smoke. And I'm going to spend my energy explaining to parents how and why that is the best way to go. And so that's how I feel about even the latest thing with big tech and the Senate hearings. I love that they happened. I love that there are lawsuits that are trying to happen. I love all that because it just brings a lot of awareness. And I think for that reason alone, it's fabulous to have this discussion. I think let's get as many things in the news as we can. However, I do not think that it is the tech company's responsibility. And the reason why is because if we say that, then we have to start saying that a whole lot of other things should be mandated as well. And things like strip clubs. I don't believe in strip clubs. I don't think they're good. I don't want my kids going to them. So I just don't let them go to the strip club. But in every little town in this country, there is a strip club. So does it mean that we have to mandate the strip club and we make the strip club, like if my kid comes into the strip club, then do they just tell all the pole dancers to go in the back room? I mean, I know that's kind of a crazy example, but it's not their responsibility. My responsibility is to keep my kid out of the strip club. I can't wait for a bouncer to do that. And the way I'm going to keep my kid out of the strip club is I'm going to just have other things to do. I'm going to build a good relationship with my kids. They're going to look to me as their coach. I'm not going to be their best friend parent. I'm going to be the person in their life that has their moral compass set. And then we're just not going to go to strip clubs as a family, right? That's
Right.
not what we're going to endorse. And so that's just a little example. I'm sure it kind of has holes in it.
So I differ from you in
Yeah,
this, in that I do think big tech holds responsibility towards our youth. And
yeah,
I am absolutely aligned with you in thinking that the family is 100%
yeah,
the first line of value building,
yeah,
of setting our core values
sure.
and boundaries. That being said, I do believe that companies do need to be held in check for the
Yeah,
responsibility of their. If
they,
they didn't, we wouldn't have organizations like, say, the FDA. We wouldn't have,
right. And,
organizations that protect their for public health. And
but
I
like even the FDA, you can still eat the bad food and all that. So it's,
right, but you're
I
not
agree with you. I wish there was no porn, for example, on the internet. I wish that would just be a thing because that's so many problems in whatever. But what all I'm saying is, let me just say, make this clear. I think everybody's responsible. I think everybody should be responsible. But I don't think anything that big tech can do, there's really, because I know teenagers, there's just not a lot. Like if they do an age verification thing, they're just gonna cheat and get around it. I mean, I'm a little more cynical. I think those things are good because it raises awareness, but I don't think on the in the weeds of being in a house with four teenagers, I don't think they really work. I think that it's good and they should be there. But when I look at my clientele and all the families I deal with, and when I look at what's going to really happen in that house, you can certainly, like with parental controls and whatnot, you absolutely need parental controls. Do we trust them? We absolutely do not trust parental controls, right?
right,
But you
right,
still need them. So big tech, yeah, they're kind of between a rock and a hard place because they have a product that's hurting a lot of people and there
right,
should be some responsibility. I'm a little more cynical over what can they do, right? Because maybe you and I wouldn't be able to get around it, but our eighth grader will. So
right.
that's my
And
only little cynical thing.
And I do think the super strength of the millennial slash Gen Zers coming into the workforce is they are digital natives and they do approach problems different than those of us who grew up in analog life did.
Yeah.
So, for example, when I spoke with Frances Haugen, who was the Facebook whistleblower earlier this year, she had mentioned just a very simple thing that could be put into place.
Mm,
We were speaking specifically about social media, and she was talking about if you could even set like, say you want to go to bed at 10 o'clock and you
mm,
set your controls to go to bed at 10 o'clock. Then she
mm,
said maybe at 9 o'clock that your phone would automatically start slowing your social media feed. And she said the rate at which you're hit with new images and new stimulation is
mm,
absolutely what keeps you on and what keeps you engaged. And
mm,
so she said, if you can just start slowing that down incrementally, incrementally, incrementally. I mean, think about how painful buffering is, for example.
mm,
So
mm,
I do
mm.
think that there are tools beyond the scope of my imagination that
Yeah,
exist out
there
there.
are there are some things I think that they can falsely also lead parents into this lull of, oh, big tech's got it, and
Oh,
now I don't have to.
absolutely.
So that's where I push back a little bit. I think the conversation is that technology is awesome. There's so many great things. There are certain things, though, that need to be paused and pushed back so our kids can develop really better first.
Mhm.
What I'm after and what I try to help parents understand is there's a way to do it where you can get the best out of technology, but still get the best out of the analog world while your kids are young, while their brain is being mapped
Right.
for
Getting the
those
blueprints.
connections. Yeah. So with Screen Strong, we're just all about more of a positive approach. Let's do all of these fun things that we can do. We're going to hit the pause button on things that are going to steal from that.
Mhm.
And whether they're good or bad, a lot of them are bad actually, with content and whatever. But even if it's all good content, we're still going to hit the pause button on that. We're going to dive into life. You just have to be like a good coach. You have to be firm and strict, but you also have to be very loving. So if you just get the strict without the loving, yeah, that's probably going to cause a problem.
Yeah. Going back to that connection before correction. That's a good
Absolutely.
formula. Yeah. When we come back, I'm going to ask Melanie for her healthy screen habit. Gab Wireless now offers options. Wearable tech like the Gab Watch, devices like Gab phones, and even a kid safe, non explicit music library. Built on the most reliable wireless network in the country, Gab is a go to for first phones and safe tech. Get safety, peace of mind, and an added discount by using the code HSHabits at checkout. I'm talking with Melanie Hempe, founder of Screen Strong, a nonprofit that is founded on the belief of keeping the benefits of useful tech for kids while empowering parents to remove the toxic tech. Melanie, on every episode of the Healthy Screen Habits podcast, I ask each guest for a healthy screen habit. This is a tip or takeaway that our listeners can put into practice in their own home. What's yours?
My tip is to skip the problematic screens in your house, and that includes video games and social media and smartphones all the way through adolescence. I know a lot of people say just to pause through middle school, and we say to pause through adolescence. That is my tip. That is our science-based tip that we say give your kid the best advantage while they're young and while they're in that sensitive time of development for their mental health to be developed without the scars of screen addiction. So we say just to skip that. And I believe that every family can benefit from this. No parent has ever looked back and said, gee, I wish my child had spent more time on video games and smartphones. So just take the challenge. We have a 7-day challenge that's connected to our student. And then we also have a 30-day challenge. And we tell you how to do this. We can tell you how exactly to eliminate the problematic screens in your house. And this tip might just save your life. You never know.
Excellent. As always, you can find a complete transcript of this show and a link to Screen Strong, as well as that Kids Brains and Screens curriculum that Melanie is speaking of, by going to healthyscreenhabits.org. Click the podcast button and scroll down to find this episode. So, Melanie, thank you so much for being here and for sharing both your personal journey with tech and your family and your passion for helping all families.
Hillary, thank you so much for everything that you're doing. Just to spread this message, with the more voices, the better. Thank you.
For more information, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at Healthy Screen Habits. Make sure to visit our website, healthyscreenhabits.org, where you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts or via RSS, so you'll never miss an episode. It's free, it's fun, and you get a healthy new screen habit each week. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate you giving us a quick rating. It really does help other people find us and spread the word of healthy screen habits. Or if you'd simply like to tell a friend, we'd love that too. I so appreciate you spending your time with me this week, and I look forward to learning more healthy habits together.